Now, you see people talking about Powell saying that the Fed has adopted a new framework that removes a reference to the central bank seeking inflation that averages 2% over time, saying that the Fed is deleting their 2% target, that only judgment remains, and longer-term inflation expectations well anchored at 2% is a good thing. And Victory Lap's saying years ago I predicted the Fed would increase their inflation target, and now they did something even crazier. They removed any inflation target at all. Unfortunately for the doomers, but fortunately for the rest of us, this is not what happened here. In Powell's speech at Jackson Hole, he unveiled a new framework to approach inflation. And the new framework removes some of the language that more narrowly focused on the pre-pandemic challenge of persistently low inflation. In other words, they are abandoning the average inflation target, AIT framework. That was a policy that allowed inflation to exceed 2% temporarily in order to offset prior undershoots. Okay, so in plain language, what does this mean? Prior to 2020, the Federal Reserve targeted 2% inflation. When inflation was lower than they wanted, they would try and do things to get inflation higher. While inflation was higher than they wanted, they would try and do things to get inflation lower. But after the trillions of dollars that they printed out of nothing starting in 2020, inflation shockingly shot through the roof. Prices were going up like crazy, so they unveiled at that time a new framework and said, hey, it's okay that inflation is higher than normal right now because we're looking at things through a new framework called average inflation targeting, which means, yes, inflation is higher right now, but we don't need to care about that because it was lower earlier. So on average, over the course of however many years we want to look at, we're still golden. And because of that new framework of AIT, average inflation targeting, they waited way too long to try and undo their mistakes from all the money printing. And so for the last couple of months, the Federal Reserve has been reviewing this average inflation targeting framework that they've been making decisions through and saying, hey, we're getting rid of that. We're going back to the way things were before, where if inflation is too high, we're going to do something about it right now. If inflation is too low, we're going to do something about it right now. And we're not going to worry about what the average has been over a period of time.